In a world where strength is not just measured by muscle, but by the sharpness of mind and the resilience of spirit, weakness wears 1,000 faces. Machiavelli, a man both feared and revered, was not interested in appearances. He cared only for results, for influence, for the deep pulse of power that governs every society. Quietly, invisibly, relentlessly, he understood something most people still refuse to admit. Weakness is not merely a condition. It is a pattern, a signature, a behavior that leaks out of a man like blood from a wound. It does not matter how well-dressed he is, what car he drives, or how smooth his words are. The essence of weakness cannot be hidden for long, and for those with eyes to see, it is instantly recognizable. What follows is not a list. It is not advice. It is an ancient dissection, a Machiavellian diagnosis of frailty, a map of behaviors that expose a man not as harmless, but as inconsequential. And in Machiavelli's world, being inconsequential is a death sentence. So listen carefully. 1. Over-apologizing, the currency of the insecure. A weak man apologizes too much. He treats every interaction like a social tightrope. Terrified of falling into disapproval, he says sorry, not because he regrets, but because he fears. Fears the loss of approval. Fears confrontation. Fears standing firm in his own truth. Machiavelli knew that power does not apologize for existing. Power does not bend unless bending brings it closer control. When a man apologizes for his very presence, for his tone, for his opinion, when he constantly seeks emotional clearance from others, he signals weakness. He is not a threat, not an adversary. He is a subject, a court jester in the palace of power. And a jester, by definition, entertains. He does not rule. 2. Excessive validation seeking, the craving that never ends. The weak man is addicted to validation, like a drunk is addicted to the bottle. Compliments are his oxygen, likes and comments his dopamine. He thrives not on internal direction, but on external confirmation. His self-worth is built on sand, fragile, shifting, always on the brink of collapse. Watch him closely. He posts, then checks, then rechecks. He compliments others not from generosity, but in hopes of receiving something in return. His smiles are rehearsed. His praise is strategy, not sincerity. Machiavelli would see through it in seconds. The man who constantly seeks validation is the man who lacks inner certainty. And a man without certainty cannot lead, cannot influence, cannot command loyalty. He is a leaf in the wind. 3. Fear of confrontation, the coward's creed. There is a difference between peacekeeping and cowardice. The weak man hides behind politeness, diplomacy, and let's not make this a big deal. But he is not diplomatic. He is afraid of rejection, conflict, and the uncomfortable truth of standing alone. Power is not reckless, but it does not cower. When Machiavelli spoke of the lion and the fox, he did not mean choose one. He meant be both. The lion confronts. The fox calculates. The weak man is neither. He's the rabbit, frozen in the face of danger, hoping the shadow passes over him. Confrontation, when necessary, is a rite of passage. Avoiding it at all costs is an admission of inferiority. For over-explaining, the defense mechanism of the powerless. A man who cannot state his position and leave it at that is already lost ground. The weak man floods a room with justifications. I only said that because what I meant was, I hope you understand, but power is silent when it chooses to be. It does not rush to explain itself to every skeptical ear. Machiavelli warned against exposing too much of one's intent. The over-explainer does just that. He shows his desperation for understanding, his fear of being misunderstood, his craving for approval. He thinks he is being thorough, but all he is doing is broadcasting insecurity. 5. Passive aggression, the weapon of the coward. Unable to confront directly, the weak man weaponizes subtlety, sarcasm, delayed replies, the silent treatment, indirect jabs dressed as jokes. Machiavelli would laugh at this. In The Prince, he makes it clear, Strategy requires masks, yes, but masks that serve conquest, not emotional games born of suppressed resentment. Passive aggression is not clever. It's a cry for control by those too afraid to seize it openly. And the world does not reward indirect ambition. It mocks it. 6. Pleasing everyone, the path to irrelevance. He who tries to please all pleases none. These are Machiavelli's words. And yet, weak men live in the illusion that universal approval is possible, and worse, desirable. They morph into whatever is expected. Agree with everyone. Avoid polarizing opinions. They become invisible, diluted, forgettable. They sacrifice their identity at the altar of likability. But power is polarizing. Influence requires friction. To stand for something is to risk opposition. The man who fears at risk will never matter. He may be liked, but never respected. 7. Emotional volatility, the signal of an untrained mind. Weak men are slaves to emotion. One insult and they spiral. One rejection and they unravel. They confuse passion with rage, vulnerability with weakness, and emotion with justification. Machiavelli believed that a ruler must appear compassionate, not be ruled by compassion. Control over others begins with control over the self. The man who cannot govern his own emotional landscape is a puppet, pulled by the strings of insult, flattery, or mood. And puppets do not sit on thrones. They dangle beneath them. 8. Constant comparison, measuring worth by the external. Weak men do not look within for value. They scan the world for signs they are falling behind. They envy. They resent. They measure their lives against the highlight reels of others. Comparison is a great thief, not of joy, but of clarity. It blinds a man to his own path, his own growth, his own values. Machiavelli would say this man is ripe for manipulation. All one must do is dangle the illusion of superiority before him, a status symbol, a fake success story, and he will abandon his principles for validation. A man who chases what others have will never build what is truly his. 9. Avoiding responsibility, the refuge of the powerless. A weak man deflects blame. He finds excuses. He says, it wasn't my fault more often than he says, let me fix this. In his world, responsibility is a burden, not a privilege. But Machiavelli knew control is responsibility. Influence is responsibility. Power is the ability to shape outcomes, and that means owning them. The man who avoids accountability forfeits his claim to power. He becomes a pawn, not a player, and pawns are expendable. 10. Talking too much, the voice of the desperate. Machiavelli advised rulers to be careful with words, to conceal intent, to speak only when necessary, and when they do, to speak decisively. Weak men fill silences with noise. They interrupt. They ramble. They seek to dominate through volume instead of substance. But true power is surgical. It speaks once, and the room listens. Weakness speaks endlessly, and no one hears. The man who cannot control his tongue reveals more than he realizes, his fears, his neediness, his uncertainty. And those who know how to listen will dissect him without mercy. So what now? Machiavelli did not preach cruelty for its own sake. He was not a sadist. He was a realist. He understood that the world does not function on morality, but on hierarchy. And in that hierarchy, the weak are not merely ignored. They are used, discarded, forgotten. But here's the truth that few speak aloud. Weakness is not a life sentence. It is a habit. It is learned, and therefore it can be unlearned. You unlearn weakness by embracing silence when unnecessary words rise in your throat. You unlearn it by confronting what terrifies you, by standing your ground when the crowd turns, by owning your choices without apology. You unlearn it by recognizing when you've been playing the fool in the court of others, and finally walking out. Machiavelli knew that to wield power, you must first strip yourself of illusion, the illusion that kindness is always strength, that pleasing all is a virtue, that being agreeable is noble. He understood that influence requires an edge. So ask yourself, who do you become when no one's watching? Do you hold your own? Or do you fold into the expectations of others? Do you act from conviction or react from fear? The weak man waits to be told what to do. The strong man decides and others adjust. Let this be your turning point. Let the whispers of Machiavelli echo in your choices. Speak less, move smart, cut the behaviors that expose you. Because in this world, strength is not a luxury. It's the price of survival. And weakness is not forgiven. It is noticed, measured, and eventually crushed